everyone, welcome back to SamsRack. I'm Samantha, and if you are new here, hello, welcome to my channel. And if you are returning, I am so glad to see you. I know it has been such a long ass time. Like, it feels like forever ago since I did anything with YouTube. But honestly, if you've read the title of this video, then you know that I was pregnant and I had my baby girl, and therefore circumstances changed. For me, I always thought I was going to be one of those cool mommy vloggers and make cool YouTube videos about all the stages of my pregnancy and how things were going, but life just said, no, you ain't gonna do that. And you know, I'm happy at the end of it that I got a beautiful and healthy baby girl, and now I'm here to tell you guys about my pregnancy journey. So if you are interested in hearing what my situation was and how I went through my pregnancy, please go ahead and stay tuned. Okay, let me get some water in my mouth before we start, because I feel like I'm gonna be talking for a long time. I'm trying to make this video short, but I feel like if you say those things, that doesn't happen. So I became pregnant last year at the end of the some part in the end of the year. I don't know exact date that I conceived, but we found out and we were super excited. We did want to have a baby, and I've always wanted a little girl, so it just worked out perfectly. So something you guys probably don't know about me, because I don't think it's anything I've ever shared on YouTube or Instagram or any of those other social media sites, is that I am diabetic, and I have been diabetic since I was a teenager. I am controlled all the time, except for when I'm pregnant. And I also have high blood pressure, which is just genetics. I have had that, I want to say for the last 3 years or so. I got diagnosed, and it is something that runs on both sides of my family, so it's not something that will be going away, just like the diabetes. So once we did find out I was pregnant, we went and saw my OBGYN, and she referred me to a perinatal doctor. And so from the beginning, I had 2 doctors, one for the baby, which is my OBGYN, and then the perinatal doctor, which was covering me. If you guys never heard of a perinatal doctor, typically they're doctors who are specialized in taking care of moms who are, you know, dealing with high-risk pregnancies, or babies that are high risk, or like multiples and stuff like that. Typically people who have had multiples have seen a perinatal, and then, you know, if you're high risk, you've probably seen a perinatal doctor as well. So anyway, from the beginning, we were monitoring my blood pressure, and one of the things that high blood pressure can do is it can restrict the growth of your baby. And one of the things that diabetes can do is make you have a large baby. So I was teeter-tottering, didn't know if I was gonna have a large baby or a small baby. So I would say the first trimester was good, controlled. My diabetes was controlled, I should say, and my blood pressure was controlled. However, after my first trimester, after your hormones change, I did notice an increase in my blood pressure, and therefore we started to put me on higher medication. Now, throughout this pregnancy, everybody swore up and down, because my placenta was getting larger and everything like that, that the diabetes was going to be the trouble. But in hindsight, what actually became the big issue was my high blood pressure. After the first trimester, I was then being monitored pretty much weekly. I was teeter-tottering between my perinatal doctor one week and my OBGYN the next week. I also saw a cardiologist to get clearance, and also saw a nephrologist, which is a kidney doctor, if you guys are wondering. And I got clearance for both of those. My kidney function, liver function, all that stuff is great. My heart, I have a slight murmur, I found out, which is good to know. But based on what he could see, I was already getting the right amount of dosage for medication. If you guys are wondering, I was on labetalol. I went from labetalol of 300 to 600 to 900 to 1200 to 2400 a day. So yeah, I worked quickly, guys. And my diabetes, I was on Trulicity, which is something that they use to treat diabetes type 2, and it was working fine with me, but it hasn't been proven to either hinder or is safe. I guess I should say it's not. They don't know if it's safe for pregnancy or if it's okay. It's not something that they use regularly, I guess. So I was switched back to Humalog. And if you are diabetic or have family members who are diabetic, you probably know what Humalog is. That is just a fast-acting insulin. And then I was switched to NPH, which I'm not sure what the actual name is, the product name. That's just the generic version. And I took both of those daily. You guys are, I don't know how many minutes I'm in, but let's talk about what happened. So by my 20th week, we started noticing that my baby girl was on the smaller side. And it wasn't that big of an issue because we were only 5 months in. And, you know, based on knowing that I do have high blood pressure, they figured, okay, she'll get bigger. Then she really wasn't growing. She was in like the 6th percentile. I really wanted to keep her in me as long as possible. So my appointments became more frequent. I was getting more tests done, labs done, and getting tons of ultrasounds. So on my, I want to say, I think it was my 23rd week. Yeah, around my 23rd, 24th week, I was just having crazy swelling in my legs. Like, it was outrageous. And I work in the hospital setting, and I'm on my feet most of the day. So my feet were, I almost felt like they were tripling in size, and my calves were so hard. So they don't want to put you on water pills when you're pregnant. And originally I had a water pill because I was taking valsartan, and so without that I thought maybe that was the case. But in reality, my high blood pressure was skyrocketing. Well, my blood pressure was skyrocketing, and I was averaging anywhere from 160 over 100 to 190 over like 110. So that's, at that point I was at 1600 of the Labetal a day. And by my 27th week, it was my 27th week. Yeah, by my 27th week, I went to the doctor, and my blood pressure was controlled for me, because you guys have to remember that I do have high blood pressure. So when I see a number like 150 over 90, I don't freak out. I know, okay, it's been a few, like, probably been too long since I've taken my last pill, or maybe I'm just having a stressed out day, whatever. I'll take my medicine, I'll feel better. But you know, now you're caring for another human, and a lot of these other people that I was involved with, you know, like nurse practitioners and other perinatologists, were not okay and not comfortable with seeing those numbers. So I was sent to the hospital. So at 26, 27 weeks, I was sent to the hospital, and I spent 10 days in the antepartum. Now, you guys, this was the worst 10 days of my life, because I was not expecting to be in the hospital at all. What they told me was, go to the hospital, we'll give you some IV high blood pressure medication, and you'll probably be gone by the end of the day. That didn't happen. So one day rolled into another, which turned into 10 freaking days. Like, I was going so stir crazy, and at that point you get discouraged. Like, you get so discouraged. And the sad thing is, I was having ultrasounds multiple times a day, because when they had me on the monitor, Emery, which is my daughter's name, did not want to participate. She was just like, leave me alone, I'm chilling. And so they would be like, oh no, she's having a deceleration, she's not doing what she needs to, like, she's not breathing, blah blah blah. So they would rush me over to ultrasound, they would check her out, and she would be back flipping, doing spontaneous breathing, and she loved to hide her face, so we never ever got a really good picture of her face, but she was doing all that. So they would bring me back, and they'd be like, she's fine. But what the problem was is they could not control my high blood pressure. Now, high blood pressure in pregnancy is something that goes hand in hand with preeclampsia or eclampsia. And if you guys do not know what that is, let me get the actual definition, because I'm gonna F it up. Okay, so preeclampsia usually begins after 20 weeks of pregnancy in women whose blood pressure had been normal. So my blood pressure has never been normal in pregnancy. So therefore I was more like very reserved. I was not freaked out by these numbers. Again, like I said, the doctors and the nurses and stuff were like, every time they took my blood pressure, they were like, are you feeling okay? Do you have a headache? And you know, I am so thankful that they were that way and over the top. But I know my body, and a lot of times you need to listen to your body, guys. Like, you need to listen to your body. Anyway, so what preeclampsia can do in your unborn child is impair kidney and liver function. It can also cause blood clot problems, pulmonary edema, which means fluid in the lungs, if you guys are not aware of that, seizures, and also can cause infant death. So what happens is preeclampsia affects the blood flow to the placenta, and thus causing smaller babies. I had IUGR, and when I was getting ultrasounds, they never told me that. They were just like, your baby's on the smaller side. Anyway, so by my 27th week, one doctor in particular, decided that I should have more baby, and I was not about that life. And so I had to plead with my OBGYN to get me to be discharged and just monitored. And I was unable to go back to work. So at 28 weeks, I stopped going to work. I was on bed rest, and for me, that is like the death of me. I was seeing a doctor twice a week. So at the beginning of the week, I would see my OBG, and at the middle to end of the week, I would go to the perinatal's office. Mind you guys, I'm supposed to be on bed rest, so this is a lot. Like, when you think about 2 appointments, it's a lot. Every time I went to see the perinatal doctor, I got an ultrasound, so that became a 2-hour appointment on top of meeting with somebody. And every time I went to the OBGYN, I had the Doppler on me, so I was getting Doppler done. So 3 weeks, was it 3 weeks that went by? 3 weeks went by, and I was then admitted to the hospital again for high blood pressure. This time I just went to the ER. I had gotten one of those Doppler things, and it freaked me out because I tried to find her heartbeat, and she hadn't really moved earlier that day. And after reading about preeclampsia and everything that come with it, I was freaking out. So I went to the emergency room. I just stayed for a few hours. They were able to find her on the monitor. They spoke with my OBGYN, and she said it was okay to send me home. After that, I knew I was probably doing a little too much, trying to get away with some stuff. And I decided that I wasn't going to do anything. So I was literally on bed rest. I made a place on the couch and didn't move for 2 more weeks. After 2 weeks passed, I went to an appointment at my OBGYN's office and met with the nurse practitioner. She was not really aware of my case. She was somebody I always met with the doctor, but she was out, so I met with the nurse practitioner, and she was not okay with my blood pressure being, I think, with the 1600 milligrams of labetalol, or was it 9? I think it was 1600. Yeah. My blood pressure was still like 155 over 100. And in preeclampsia, most physicians or most OBs will classify as preeclampsia if it's over 140 over 90. So they took it multiple times, and she decided to send me to the hospital. Now, this time I freaking knew that I was gonna have to stay over. So I think my appointment was at 12 o'clock. I went home and tried to get as much of my life together as I could, because I figured my first time there was 2 weeks. Oh, well, it was 10 days, so almost 2 weeks in the hospital. That now at 32 weeks, I believe, I was gonna be there for some time. I figured I was gonna be there till I was like 36 weeks, because the way they kind of had precautioned me the last time, I was like, I'm not gonna get out of here. So I packed as much as I could in my right mind and made my way to the hospital once Bernard, my honey, got off. And I would say, so the appointment was at like 12 something. We didn't get there till like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Yeah, guys, I wasn't messing around. I made sure I washed the dishes and I put my laundry away and all that stuff. Now, mind you, I was 32 weeks and my blood pressure was high, but they did not say anything about the baby. So even though I thought maybe I would stay 36 weeks, I also figured that I would get sent home at some point and then have to come back around 36 weeks to deliver if I wasn't staying in the hospital. So I did not bring not one thing for a baby. Like, not one thing for a baby. I was like, I'm trying to think if I actually brought anything for her. Like, no, I brought not one thing I brought for a baby. In the hospital, I had a bag for me, all my like electronic devices, and that was it. I was like, I'm not having a baby yet. In my mind, I was like, I'm not having a baby yet. But little did I know, once I went there, they were all fired up. I revisited with one of the perinatologists who all he did was inpatient, who was ready to take me back to the OR and have a C-section that day. Now, I was not ready for that. I didn't want that because I was thinking, okay, she's only 32 weeks. And being a healthcare provider, I know that hitting the 34-week milestone, or, you know, I guess whatever you want to call it, I call it a milestone to hit 34 weeks with high-risk pregnancy. But knowing that at that point, your chances are so much better for your baby. Like, the respiratory system's good. Their intake is usually so much better. Their like intestinal tract is not as sensitive. So I was like determined that I was going to keep her until 34 weeks. However, that didn't happen. So on day 2 of being in the hospital and refusing a C-section, my physician, my OBGYN, was on call. And I had already emailed her because they were freaking out in the hospital because my blood pressure was about 170s to 180s over 90s to 110. Now, mind you, I felt great, but I could not convince anybody that I was going to be okay. And they put me on the Doppler, which is what they do to check your baby's status and whatever. And they said that she was having some decelerations. However, when I was watching the monitor, we were never able to get a really good connection with her because she always moved and she always lived way, way low. So a lot of times when they would come by and say, oh, we can't get her on the Doppler, I would be like, okay, whatever, take me to get an ultrasound. I was getting 2 to 3 ultrasounds a day because the nurses would come on shift, they would want to Doppler you. So with each shift, I was pretty much getting an ultrasound, and then I would get one in the middle to check to see how she was doing. At this point, we did her ultrasound, and she was estimated at only 2.9 pounds and about 4%, the 4th percentile. And that really also freaked them out because at this point we are now 32 weeks in and she's still super small. And we're at the point where we're like, is it better to bring her out and let her grow in the world, or are we going to try and keep her in and not see really any change? So I had emailed my OBGYN asking her if, when she was on, which was Friday, if we could please schedule the delivery and I would be induced. Originally we had scheduled it for 36 weeks and then we rescheduled it for 34 weeks at my last appointment before I got admitted. So once I emailed her, she said yes, absolutely. She called, she scheduled it. I was going to be induced on Friday. Now, the next day, Emery had other plans. She was not cooperating on the monitor at all. The heart rate was being estimated anywhere from 80 to 120, which a lot of times they want to see over 120, and they want to see if she's having decelerations, that she's also having accelerations. Sorry about that, my camera turned off, so that means I've been talking for a little too long. But anyway, getting back to the delivery. So like I said, she was not cooperating. We took her to get, well, they took me to get an ultrasound, and at that point they determined that she was not hitting her score. Every time before that she was getting 8 of 8. I can't remember what the test is called. So at that point she was only doing about 4 out of 8 on her scale. We then went back to the room, and before I knew it, the OBGYN, my OBGYN's partner, was there telling me that based on her last result, she was going to be delivered. And I was like, what? Like, all I could say was, what? And then she's like, yes. And I said, well, when are we going to do it? And she said 30 minutes. And I was like, I'm not doing it without my mom. At this point, Bernard was already here. He was living in the hospital pretty much with me after work, so it was fine. He was there. And if you've ever gone through a emergency C-section, then you know it's kind of chaotic. And I definitely did not think I was going to have a C-section. I was so prepped and ready to be induced, and I knew it was a possibility that I would have a C-section, just being high risk. But our plans were to take her out before I was ever going to have any issues, and that didn't work. So after doing that, getting myself together, my mom showed up. I don't know how she got there so fast, but she did. I was then taken back to the OR. At this point, I was 32 weeks and 6 days. I would say that my C-section experience was interesting. I have been in tons of C-sections, but on the other end. So being the patient on the table was difficult for me. I also, I guess, was hard to get an epidural on. They attempted, I think it was 6 times before it was successful. And I have all through my pregnancy had the worst congestion, like sinuses, and the only thing that was working for me was Benadryl at night. And I had not gotten Benadryl that day when she came in. So I was not a happy camper. So once they put me flat on that table, I was losing my mind because I couldn't breathe. My toes were numb, and the epidural was feeling like ants was crawling all over my arm. Now, I don't feel like I was calm, but everybody else said I was calm. So it might have been an internal battle with myself. But you guys, when people say like you hold your breath until you hear your baby cry, it's so true. Like, as soon as they told me baby out, or they said baby out, or whatever they said, I can't even remember. I listened to hear if she cried, and thanks to God, she did let out a little cry before they threw some oxygen on her. So yeah, she came out and she was amazing. Like, obviously everybody says they were so beautiful. She literally was the most beautiful thing to me because she was so itty bitty. She was born on April 18th, and she was 3 pounds. Technically she was 2 pounds 14 ounces, but we're just gonna call it 3 pounds. And she initially was on CPAP, which is continuous pressure, for less than 5 minutes. She was brought over to me on a nasal cannula, which is just oxygen in the nose. And then by the time she was brought to the nursery and I saw her, she was on no oxygen. By the time I had actually seen her, they had already put a NG down, which is a nasogastrial tube, and they are able to give medication and some medications and nutrition through there. So she started on that, and we ended up being in the NICU for 3 weeks only, which I know I say only, but you guys, there are babies who are in there for months. And I'm just so blessed to say that the only reason why she was in the hospital, not even because she was small, because we took her home at 4 pounds, but was because of the nutrition. So for the first 2 weeks or so, she was, first week she was getting tube feeding completely. By the second week she was doing tube feeding, and I was trying to advocate for bottles. By the end of that week, she was getting bottles, but she was not taking like more than 17 mLs. And finally, one day, the last week we were there, she hated the NG, let me tell you. So she kept pulling it out every day. They were replacing it almost twice a shift. And she pulled it out and I said, can we just leave it out and feed her, see how she does? And she did it great. She started taking that bottle. She took it for one whole day, and the doctor told us the day that day he came by, he said, if she is like this tomorrow, I hope you guys have a car seat that can carry her because she'll be discharged. And by the next day, we did a safety check in the car seat. They came and did her hearing test. We also did all the like little parenting classes that they have modules for online, and she was discharged by noon. Yeah, like NICU experiences are hard enough, but my NICU experience was nothing short of like pleasant and beautiful. And I'm so thankful that after the first week, I was able to hold her and touch her and carry her whenever I wanted. They had put us in like a private room, still a NICU room. She still had cords and wires to be monitored, but we were holding her, we were bathing her, we were feeding her. Pretty much the nurses would come in every 3 hours just to get her food ready because they do count calories, and she's on a special food for premature babies. But besides that, I felt like I was at home taking care of her. So if you guys want a video on my NICU experience, please let me know down in the comments, and I can tell you like on a day-to-day basis how it is, what to expect. If your baby or your soon-to-be baby is going to potentially have the same experience as my child. If you have preeclampsia and you're wondering like what are potential things that could happen, please let me know again down in the comments, and I will try and do a video specifically on my preeclampsia and NICU experience, because I would say my preeclampsia experience was horrid. It was hard. And my NICU experience was not hard because of the environment. It was hard because I was unable to bond with her like you would at home. I was initially, like I said, the first week not able to hold her like when I wanted to. Therefore, my milk supply did not come in like it was supposed to. And when I tell you I was pumping every 3 hours, I was. And I was not getting more than an ounce. I don't think in one sitting I ever got more than an ounce. Like, yeah, no. But I did pump. If you are in the NICU, they usually collect like 48 samples or something like that of your colostrum because it's just so rich in nourishment. Now, I did 48 of those, and they all range from 3 mLs to about 15 mLs. And by the time I had done all of that, I was exhausted, and it wasn't working for me. So if you guys want a video on my breastfeeding situation, please let me know. I'm probably gonna do that video anyway because breastfeeding is hard. They make it sound like it is roses and chocolate covered candies and it's just gonna be this great experience and bonding. It is not always like that for everybody. So yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that. Like, that shit's hard. Again, to recap this long ass video, I was pregnant. I had a super hard pregnancy, which was high risk. My daughter was born at 32 weeks and 6 days, so we just say 33 weeks. And she was also 3 pounds. Again, 2 pounds, 14 ounces, but we call it 3 pounds. And now she is 3 months old, doing great. Like, besides being small, she is hitting milestones, eating about 4 to 5 ounces now per feeding. She is content. She's trying to figure out how to use her thumb. So I could not be more blessed with the experience that I had, because at the end of the day, I could have had worse things happen, and my diabetes could have acted crazy too on top of that. So I'm just so thankful that she's here and she's happy and she's healthy and we are living our happy family life now. Probably gonna do a more in-depth video where I can have some more dates and stuff, but I just really wanted to talk to you guys and tell you where I've been and what I've been doing, and now you know I'm a mommy. Again, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave me a comment down below or around or wherever the comment is now. I don't know. I haven't looked on YouTube for a while. Hope it's still down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon.